Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. A very important announcement before we get into the episode. The front row is now open. What is the front row? If you're a Muslim man who's ambitious, you want more out of life, you want to become more of an action taker, you've got a lot of potential, you've got a lot of dreams in your health, in your ibadah, in your finances, whatever it is, then this is for you. Learn more about it in the description below, and I'll see you there. There's got a full video there explaining everything you need to know, how it works. But ultimately, there are limited spaces, and so you're going to want to take action now to get inside. So check the link in the description. I'll see you there for all ambitious Muslim men. Assalamu alaikum. I actually know the podcast number for once now, 209. Yeah, 209.
Order. Yes, I checked as well.
Your son's,
actually watched.
Your son's toy.
I have to say yes, don't I? If I said no, it'd be weird having a hammer like this. No, yeah, this is Khalil's hammer. This is he plays whack-a-mole, and
it's for whack-a-mole. It's not for a judge thing.
No, but I just found it here on its own. So
I was going to ask you if it was like Sharia. I was like Taghut law.
Well, that's a deep conversation. Maybe for another day.
You know what?
Maybe for episode 300.
You just got me a new idea, a new topic. Okay, I'm throwing it in there. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Throwing it in there.
Oh no.
You know, I was thinking actually recently. I was, what was I doing? I think I was reading a book to my son, and I was reading it, or he was reading it, or something like that. And I just like kind of, metaphorically stepped back, and I was just like, this is a stupid story. This is silly. This is silly.
Yeah. Okay.
What I mean by silly is like tafih, like there's no it's not serious. The opposite of serious. That's what I mean by silly. Yes. And of course a kid's story doesn't have to be serious, but it's so silly that it's actually bringing down the level of the kids reading it. It's like these kids that, kids are capable of, like my son, he reads tafsir books, like very basic kids tafsir books, but he gets it and he follows the concepts, and then he'll come back and teach me it, or he'll talk about it. He'll be like, oh, there's the sirat and it goes over Jahannam, and he'll be like talking about all serious things, yeah? Or like, like there was one time, he doesn't really do it now, but he'd be like he learned Juz Amma and stuff, like Barak, and so we're like, you should give your brother this or that thing, whatever, like the food that you want or whatever, you should give it to him, it's good. And then he always does this, he brings up the evidence against himself. He was like, yeah, I should give it to him because man a'ta wattaqa wa saddaqa bil husna. He'll be like quoting it. That's what I'm saying. He understands, okay? So, and he's like 4 years old, yeah? So if he can get it, why are we teaching our kids, the bunny, by the way, there's a rabbit who's like walking and talking and wearing like humans' clothes, and the bunny tripped in the mud, and then daddy laughed at the bunny. Bro.
Hey, Ilyas loves those kind of stories, man. Maybe you've just got a child prodigy on your hand and you just don't know it.
I'm saying Ilyas likes it, that's fine. But Ilyas could do better as well if he had better stories. But we have these silly stories.
Right.
Like, where's the stories about like doing something serious with your life? Like these characters, they're all doing silly things. And the book that triggered me, actually, I just remembered it. The title was Mommy Comes to the Rescue.
Okay. You misogynist. That's what it is. It's triggered.
Well, I don't know if it was like that title. I assume just because of the day we live in, that it's probably got some feminist agenda in it. But I don't know if it was that or not. But there was
who picked the book?
Well, all these books are like gifts from people. I don't think we bought any of them.
Yeah, but who picked it on that day to read? Was it you?
Well, bro, the floor's all over the books are all over the floor. Just pick off.
Just a lucky dip, yeah. Oh, feminist book.
Yeah, exactly. And mashallah, I mean, people gave us a lot of books, mashallah. But Sometimes you
Alhamdulillah.
end up, and obviously it's an innocent thing. You're getting books. Okay, the illustrations look
Yeah.
nice, or the dialogue is good, whatever, yani. And I don't even know if that was like a feminist book, but the point is that a lot of the time when I'm reading these stories with him, they're silly, man. They're silly, and you can do better. Like, what about
Right.
stories about great people from the past, like simplified versions of that, where it's like, oh, he defended the honor of his father, or he helped his brother. Even this kind of thing where his brother was being bullied, and he protected his brother, and he fought them back, and he saved him, and like something, and like more real life, I suppose that's part of it, but also that's something that inspires ambition and goals, and yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Definitely. I was just looking at. We've got a few books down here, but they seem to be more educational ones. Um, there's like a science book, and there is like an animal kingdom book, and there's a dictionary, junior
Yeah.
dictionary, and there's a ocean sea. Yeah, I was trying to think of an example because I'm sure upstairs we've got stuff that's what you're kind of describing, like simplified versions of the stories of the
Mm.
prophets, simplified versions of like history. But yeah, I think like you said, depends what the age is. I mean, Ilyas is still 3. He will be 4 actually at the end of the month. Um, but what you're describing, I don't think he would really. I don't think it would go down well with him. I think he'd lose interest very quickly. But like you said, when is your son going to be 4?
Oh,
No, he's
yeah.
already 4. When is he going to be 5? Sorry.
Oh, in like 9 months or something.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm not saying about how advanced it is. I'm just saying how the content of it. There's no rule. Like, where
Yeah, I
is the
guess so.
rule that kids' books have to be silly?
When child labor was outlawed, that's why. When they stopped being chimney
Right.
sweeps and they started introducing childhood as a narrative and teenagehood as a narrative and
I don't know
these
if you're being
social
serious or
constructs.
not
Probably
here.
no, I'm being half
Okay.
serious, but no, seriously, I think obviously would a chimney sweep be reading a book like that? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
You
like,
know, the
what
same
age?
entertainment that a chimney sweep would have,
Yeah.
the same entertainment a chimney sweep would have, enjoyed would have been the same that an adult would have. Like Charlie Chaplin, were there still chimney sweepers back then? Everyone enjoyed that kind of stuff. Like that was the entertainment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So a kid and an adult would probably watch the same thing. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think. Did your son enjoy the book, or
Yeah, he
you just
likes
like
these books.
you gave
Yeah, he
up halfway
likes all
through?
these books. Yeah.
So there you go. Ask him, bro. Interview him. Bring him on the podcast next week.
Yeah, and then what do you mean though? Like,
Just say, okay, do you like this book, or do you like? Oh, give him an alternative. So maybe tomorrow. I don't know when you read it. When did you read the book? Today.
oh, this was like 2, 3 weeks ago. This
Ah,
triggering
okay. I was
incident,
going to say
yani.
maybe, yeah, because it would answer your question maybe to maybe go and read, something more akin to what you're describing to him, and then ask him what he
Yeah, well, I have
prefers.
an
Like, oh,
example
did
of
you like
that.
this one more? Or do you like
But
that one?
the thing is, as well,
Go
it's
on.
not about what he prefers. I'll tell him what he prefers. Yeah, but but
Ooh.
I'll tell you a real book which is more serious, and he likes it, and he just as much as the others. So let me try and find the exact title. It's like my first Quran translation with pictures. This is a bit, I guess, controversial. The fact that there's pictures. I don't know. I'm just trying to like make up stuff here. So it's yeah, that's what it's called. My first Quran translation with pictures.
Oh, I've got that.
Yeah, Juz Amma. Yeah,
Oh yeah, my kids love this one.
bro.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah,
literally tafsir of surahs, like kind of tafsir, yani.
yeah, yeah.
And it's got the nice pictures. It's like describing what's happening, but it's Quran, and it's obviously it's Quran, so it has serious topics.
Yeah. They've got this as well, and they. I remember them. This was like what their defining kind of concept of a lot of the religion,
Mm,
really, because we'd refer to the Quran, but obviously they couldn't read it
mm,
fully, uh, or at all at the time when we had
mm,
this. And yeah, like I think there's like references to shaitan in there, obviously because it's the Quran,
mm.
right? And because of that, that's where their concept of shaitan came. And that's like my son would see. I can't remember how he's depicted or referred to in this book. Some sort of way.
It's probably just like some sort of
My kids would,
darkness, or there's no figure.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I can't remember how, but no, they found it very engaging and insane. I think they've read it so much now that I haven't really seen them pick it up for a while.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we definitely every night we will grab a book, whether it's me and my wife, and go through. Mostly my wife, as you can imagine, but the odd time. Yeah, I'll tell you what my kids love. Where's Wally, bro? Love that game.
Okay.
It's more of a game than a book, really.
Yeah. There's like book where you're looking for
But
Wally,
books in
right?
general, yeah. But books in general, I think, like when like Suleiman's reading more now, and he had an issue with reading. He didn't really like to read. He's very good at maths. I think he's like pretty gifted at maths actually, but reading wasn't really his kind of thing. But I'm like forcing him to just read things all the time now. So be driving and I'm telling him to read something, and then when he starts finding out cool facts in the book, that's what's engaging him more because he likes to be a bit of a show off and tell you, oh, did you know? Did you know? Well, there's a lot more of did you know if you start reading books that will actually tell you something new, right? So yeah, we're doing that, and I think that's part. I think that's what you need to match it up with. Where, like you said, if it's an empty book with an empty story and nothing really factual, they don't really gain much out of it. They might gain some life lessons, but it's nothing really that's going to stick with them that you can't just tell them anyway. Like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. But when it's like a fact-based book or something about a real life person or a place, no doubt that's going to stay with them. And then they do like to show off to their extended family and say, "Oh, grandma, guess what? Did you know?" And they just play dumb, bro. You got to play dumb and just say, "Oh, really? Wow."
Yeah. And by the way, I don't want to make it sound like it has to be like stories of NBA and stuff. In fact, there are some books we have which are written by non-Muslims, etc., but they have some morals in it. The story is just maybe more like it's something that could have happened in real life, and it's got maybe some moral in the story or whatever, and just not that silly, Yanni. Like that stuff is fine, that's good. I do think, by the way, there's a big gap in the market for this kind of thing. At the same time, I don't know how many parents actually, I don't know, parents are seeking out books for their kids always, right? Or are they more like is it more like an iPad thing with cartoons, like skipping books, or like, I don't know.
My kids like to go to the library all the time. So we're not really buying, like we get gifted books, and sometimes if they see something in the shop that they really want, we'll buy it. But other than that, I think they just kind of pick out what they're interested in there. So I don't know about other parents. I don't really mix with anyone else in terms of parents wise, so I don't know what they do. I'm not sure. I really don't know. My wife probably know because she speaks to a lot of other mothers and got friends like that. But
some people
I just don't know. Like, I don't know
whether children get into reading or not. Like basically, a lot of parents are struggling with getting their kids to read, and it's because their kids are watching a lot of videos, cartoons, whatever. And what that means, if you just boil it down, it's basically reading is not that stimulating for them because they watch the videos, and videos are way more stimulating. So they prefer always the video. So they're going to find it, they're going to struggle to read basically. And that's like just reinforced, my policy of no screens. Like I'm even more glad about that because, my kids, both of them, they love books. And it's probably because it's like, that's the most stimulating thing that they have access to.
Right.
So, I really recommend that, like go hardcore strict on it. I guess it's difficult sometimes if you live with your parents or you live, with other family around. But, you got to try and, I guess, lobby your parents into it somehow, or, because it's fully worth it, man. It's fully worth it. If your kids grow up reading, even if like, the thing is, they'll be like, well, they're going to like use screens one day. And I agree, but I just delay it until their brains form somewhat. Like maybe age, I don't know, 9, they might use screens like for specific reasons or something. So I'm just trying to delay it because I'm thinking about myself as well. Yeah, how messed up my brain is right now. And I started using like computer and screens and internet and this and that at age probably 15, 16. Right? That was when there was like more to
Really?
do. So
Yeah. Okay.
so like yeah, like if I could like, and I still, by the way, find that I have an advantage over like a 20-year-old now, right? Even though like I say my
Yeah.
brain is messed up, but it's got an advantage over the guy who had access to computers, internet, screens since age, 5, 6, 7. So I'm trying to give my kids that
This
advantage.
guy.
Really?
Yeah, bro.
What
Day
was
one.
the when you were 5, 6, 7?
Bro, I remember watching like Saturday morning cartoons. I remember because
Okay, I guess there was
back like in
cartoons.
the
Yeah,
day, like long time ago, when my parents used to work, both of them used to work in a bit of an estate.
yeah,
So I would, at least on my days off, I don't remember school that much, like year one and two and all of that and reception, but um, I would pretty much spend the mornings on my own. My mum would come check on me and then go back to work, but it was like working next door and
yeah.
stuff. But because of that, I remember being, watching TV and stuff. However, like you said, like comparing today and yesterday is completely different because certain kids stuff was only on for a particular amount of time,
Exactly,
then
exactly.
it would
Yeah,
be gone. There wasn't a
yeah,
choice what you'd watch, and just because something was on doesn't mean you were into it. So if you didn't like
yeah.
it, you
You
would
still
go.
have
So
some
there's
of
only a
that
few shows
discipline
that I would like.
required as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd watch like a Pokemon on a
Mm,
Saturday, Digimon as
mm,
well. Once those two shows are
mm,
done, I go and do something
mm.
else. And I used to draw a lot. I used to read a
There you
lot.
go.
I used to play. I used to have a bicycle and ride around the estate a
Yeah,
lot. Because, like you said, there isn't this 24/7
yeah,
access. And that's the thing I don't like as well. Like all these streaming platforms and all this endless content, and YouTube obviously is one of
mm,
them. Um, Certainly not giving free reign to the
mm,
kids to go on whatever they want. Everything's vetted if they are going to watch something.
yes,
So there's
yeah,
levels to it. There's definitely
yeah.
levels to
I
it.
mean, by the way, I did
Um,
have
as
TV. I
opposed
did have
to
TV, but it was like what you were saying. Like, it's I don't know. There was only stuff on for I don't know, maybe up to 3 hours a day, like maximum. So that would be the most I could
yeah,
watch it anyway. But I can't remember. I mean, I remember my parents giving me restrictions around TV, but yeah, there was definitely a limit anyway, like in what I could watch. So, but I
yeah,
mean, I suppose I was focused on like computer, internet, that kind of
yeah,
non-stop access to stimulation kind of thing, I suppose. Yeah, and that was like
yeah. I
age
mean, there was a
15,
little bit
16.
of internet.
Mm,
There was a little bit of internet before I went to Tunisia,
mm.
but I didn't really start using it properly until I came
Yeah,
back. Um, I remember at one point, maybe 11, 12, I did have a computer with internet in my
yeah,
room. Uh, but other than that, but even then, like it wasn't like it was like very old internet, wasn't it? It wasn't much you could do. It's not like you watch videos
yeah,
and
definitely
stuff
not.
like
Yeah.
that, you know. Um, but my dad was very keen on me having a computer and learning and using it and being computer literate. And he was convinced, like, oh, this is the future. Even before, like, I remember my mum explained it to me because obviously I was a bit younger then to understand. But she said that, like, as soon as, like, we were one of the first people to have, like, that in our family to have computer and internet in the house
Mm,
because he just really believed that this was it and he wanted me using it from like an early age. So I just think from like 6 years
mm,
old, even in Tunisia, when I did go to Tunisia, I had a computer in my room. It wasn't connected to the internet because we didn't have internet there. I think Tunisia got internet for a while, but but there was, I certainly had a computer in my bedroom, and I'm trying to think what I used to do on it. Paint. There was like a few other softwares I'm trying to think of. I used to watch it. I used to watch DVDs on there
Age of Empires.
occasionally. No, no, I had Thunder Brigade. If anyone ever remembers that? It was like this sci-fi tank flying
Mm,
game. It was awesome. I had Tomb Raider as well.
mm.
Tomb Raider is too scary though. I couldn't play it.
Frogger.
I was very scared. I was a very scared boy. Okay, certain things couldn't deal with it. And I always just ask myself, when am I going to grow out of this? And now I know that I have, but back then I just thought it was inevitable. I was forever going to be scared of fog. Deal with fog, bro. There was fog in any sort of video game. It was like, I don't know what's coming out of that fog. I'm not. Nah, get out of this.
What age did it go away?
um, Probably quite late. Now that I think about it, I was definitely in this
Like
house.
14.
So yeah, probably like 16.
Wow.
I still don't even like engage in horror
Mm.
stuff. I don't see the fun in like trying to scare yourself.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
either.
I don't like that. I don't, now I can deal with stuff now, obviously, but I think it took me a long time. But you know what? I know it's a bit of a side topic, but it's kind of related. I've always thought about the kids and when that kicks in, because I don't know if your kids have just like walked around in the dark before or whatever. And when they're really young, like one,
Yeah.
two, they don't really
Mm.
scared. They don't get scared of
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like you could like Khalid will be in the kitchen and it'll be dark. Like he'll walk into the kitchen while it's dark because he wants to go in there. And he's not scared and he's not crying. And then like I remember thinking about that with Ilyas, like, oh look, he's not scared, he's not crying. And then somewhere like in the 2.5
Mm.
range to 3, it just switched on. Like fear kicked in. And now he's scared of the dark and he doesn't want to go. Where does that come from, bro?
Mm.
Is that because of the stuff we're talking about? Is it their wild imagination?
Well, it could be natural, just like you, the fear of the unknown, but it also could be, they could have heard it somewhere, in a storybook or something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I remember trying to
Hmm.
avoid teaching them the concept of being scared of the dark.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
have this thing
absolutely.
they do sometimes. They'll
Yeah.
go into the room together and close the door and turn the light off, and they just like enjoy it. I don't know. They just stay in there for a bit, like.
Oh, bit thrill seeking, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's
one of them
awesome.
is like, not two yet, so he'll be in that age where you're talking about where they don't even mind yet.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
No, it's interesting seeing that development, and it's interesting because you learn as you see them grow, that you learn more about yourself and what sort of
mm,
things made you the way you are.
mm, mm. Yeah.
Um, like they're very rough with each other and they wrestle with each other, and they're like, and even Khalil, he's only one, and he's doing the same thing, and he wants to get involved, and he's like belly flopping on top of them and stuff. Um, so they're going to be very, I don't know, physical when they get older,
Mm.
and they're already talking. Like Suleiman will tell me, let's do training. I just want to do training. He caught like a few episodes of Dragon Ball Z once, and he's just crazy for it. Like that kind of activity. So it's cold now, but like when it was still warm, every day he's begging me to go out. We had a few weights in the garden. He wants to train in the garden. He wants to lift weights. He wants to like do, some
Sick.
sort of martial arts or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, and obviously his brother follows whatever he does, and I'm sure Khalil will be the same. And not once again, it speaks to you about those influences because I think that's one thing that maybe books you can't really get is that kind of inspiration to be physically active. It's not the same as seeing it in motion. Like reading it in a
Yeah.
book, it might turn the trigger, but you know, I didn't really start thinking about training and health and fitness until I started watching like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like
Mm.
that as a kid, right? Or Captain Measured,
Yeah.
about football. Uh, and yeah, there are those kind of role models or those heroes that you have as a kid that kind of inspire you to follow some sort of path. Especially if you don't have any like male um, role models in your life that already do
Yeah.
that, you know. My dad always wanted me to like. My dad was a big football fan, but I didn't grow up into football at all. He always wanted me to be into football, and
Mm.
I didn't really care, you know. I remember he even put me in a football team once, and I clearly must have not engaged with it very
Mm.
well, and I was quickly taken out. So I think he was always quite gutted about that. But
Mm.
but when I saw like my my nephews, uh, one of them was really like I think he almost got scouted for Chelsea or something. I can't remember what it was. Um, so my half sister's kids. Uh, my dad was like super gassed about it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it just shows you that sometimes you could even want to inject it into them, but you can't make a kid choose his heroes. Really,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm
Do
saying?
you have these kind of dreams for your kids,
I'd
or
like
you're like neutral?
I had that conversation this morning with Suleiman very briefly because he was like, "Oh, when I'm older, I'm going to get a job and I'm going to buy everything I want and nobody can stop me. No, he goes, oh, when I get older, I'm just going to buy everything I want and no one can stop me. And I was like, okay, but you need to get, I didn't say job first because I didn't want to get him in that slave mindset. I was going to say, oh, you need a job. I said, oh, you know, you can sell some things and have a business or he can have a job and then you can get things. He goes, oh, what job can I do and what business can I do? And then I just thought quickly, like, my gut reaction was to go straight for like, well, you could be a doctor. Myself doing it. I don't know why I thought I brought it up, but I couldn't think of anything. And then he started asking me about my job. Like, he asked me how much I make.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm not. I was like, you don't need to know that, silly man, because I know he's just going to go and tell a bunch of people, right? He's just going to go and tell a bunch of people. So I can't remember how I dealt with it in the end. I was just quite vague about it. But like Ilyas, for example, he knows what he wants to do, bro. He's crazy about food, toy food, cooking. He wants to be a chef. That's all he wants to do. I've got a picture on my phone, obviously I won't show you here, but like if we go into any toy or walk past a toy or any toy shop, forget the action figures, forget the footballs, he will go for the toy food all the time. Toy vegetables, toy cakes, toy fruits. And he's like, I need this. I want it. And he'll take it with him. And then you put him to bed, bro. Good night. Come back to check on him like half an hour later. And he's taken all the fruits and the toys and the toy food and he's put it and he's like sleeping with it like this. Like he's crazy about that stuff. But my philosophy has always been like,
is that a phase or it's been long?
It's like his thing. It's always been his thing since, you know, he was little. I mean, he's still little. He's like I said, he's almost 4. Like I said, at the end of the month. But I've always had the philosophy, especially considering like what we spoke about, the upbringing I had with dad, was that I don't care what they do as long as it's halal and as long as they excel in it. Because theoretically, whatever it is, there's always the top of that field, you know. You know, if you're, I don't know, a fisherman, well, the top fisherman in the world must be on some serious, you know, whether it's a sports fisherman or whatever. Give me something else. I don't know, a builder. Well, the top builder in his field, he's going to be on some serious, like you can monetize your way in any field as long as you're the best at it. And you can also market that you're the best at it, right? And that's my philosophy. As long as it's not haram, whatever it is, if you want to be a chef, for example, be the best chef in whatever country you're in. Just be top tier. Well, yes, we know how much money the best chefs are making. I'm not saying money is everything, but there's avenues for success in all fields, I believe. I think that's the best way of both worlds. So you identify their strengths, you support them in that, whatever it is, you know, as long as it's halal, and just go for it. And I think that way you can kind of, yes, you need to be tough on them in the sense that if they get lazy with that goal, you reinforce it on them. But as long as I think they've got something already in there that they're chasing and you're not forcing them into something that they were never really interested in, I think you're good to go. What do you think?
I feel kind of neutral still about it. I also feel like any inclination I have in any direction is probably just trying to fill in the you know, the gaps I have in myself. And I guess that's a common trend, right?
Yeah.
That's like a typical thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, all I could say is my approach is kind of like, okay, get some knowledge of Allah and his book and his Prophet ﷺ. That's like priority. And like the ability to read and understand, read well. And like, I guess language, like just speak well, whatever that comes from reading. Bro, other than that, I'm like, if they just, I feel right now, that's how I feel right now at least. If all they did is learn like Quran and Sharia kind of different sciences, yeah? And then they were reading. And they just did, that's all they did till like age 10. Like, I feel like that's fine. Because if you read that much, then when you turn the switch on, okay, now direct your reading towards whatever, engineering, maths, whatever, then it's going to work, right? That's kind of just my general thinking. I want them to have the Islamic knowledge that I didn't have growing up. Like I just knew, I guess I knew like the pillars of, Islam, the pillars of Iman, and I knew like, some Quran short surahs. That's what I knew. I knew general morals and stuff like that. But then I didn't like learn in a formal way till I was like 20, So
Right.
I want that to not be 20 for my kids. I want it to be like, 2. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I'm thinking. I'm kind of open. Yeah.
That's
Sometimes
good.
you have to.
That's good. I think as long as there's that.
Like you said, like as long as it's halal. Sometimes you got to look at the environment, look at the state of the world and the state of the society that you're in, and that your kids are getting influenced by, and that the kids' friends and family are in. And then at some point, sometimes, Yani, you've got to say, at least it's halal, right? Like,
yeah.
like,
No doubt
like
about it.
sometimes, Yani, that is a way to think about it. And then sometimes it's like, no, because of how you are, I know how you are, because of the environment you're in, the people you're surrounded by, the teachers or whatever you have access to. No, that's not good enough. Just halal. You can do better than just halal. Sometimes that's the case as well.
Going back to how we started this
Yeah,
episode,
the silly book.
Well, specifically it was about mummy, wasn't it? It was about mummy doing
Mummy coming to the rescue,
saving the
yeah.
day. Would you what approach would you have with your daughter?
Oh.
Like, because I haven't had that problem. I haven't had to think about it. And like, oh, look, I've already said it's a problem, haven't I? I've already said it's a problem.
I'm guessing you in is a new
that conundrum.
thing. That's what you mean by problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new. Just the idea, the concept in my head is quite new.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
so
what can I feel like Suleiman is 4. So up until age 4,
yep.
I'll just do pretty much the same thing. Beyond
Right.
that, I still don't even know for my eldest, Yani. So I don't have any plan for like for her, like, okay, what's the different direction. It's the same. It's to know Allah, know the Prophet, know all this. But I guess the seeds that I plant in my sons would be different for the future, Yani. So sometimes with my sons, I'll be like, yeah, you're gonna help. You're gonna help me later. You're gonna work. You're gonna do the shopping. You're gonna do this.
Right.
So I plant those seeds. So I'll plant different seeds for my daughter. That is one difference I can think of. Other than that, yeah, no specific plan.
Yeah, I can imagine it being quite a difficult sort of arena to navigate.
Even like taking her out,
but
like, it's good to take your kids out and like at some age, a certain age, like maybe it would be 6, 7, 8, I don't know. Like I would be able, and it would, yeah, I would be more able. It would be more, I guess, convenient to take like Suleiman out like a lot often, because he's older, right? So, but before that, I would take him out, but just not like all the time. But with a daughter, maybe I would, like when she's that age, 7, 8, 9, 10, I wouldn't give it as much importance to take her out. Before that, it's good to get her exposed to different people. But the going out thing, the seeing the people I work with or I'm friends with, maybe that's less necessary for her. That's another thing I just thought of. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose there needs to be some. Also, confidence as well. I think women require, especially in this day and age, require, or young girls in general, require a certain level of self confidence and self worth, the ability to speak up for themselves, only because they are the most targeted in society. And I don't know about Turkey, but certainly here. And certainly, well, actually, probably even in Turkey, I'm sure they will, anywhere really, because the moment they step out of the house, they are always going to be a target for this or that, for, whether it's Islamophobia or something else or whatever. So, and you see some pretty fierce sisters, mashallah, at least not fierce, always fierce, but fierce when they need to be, when they're defending themselves or whatever it is, or asking for their rights.
Yeah. And that comes from her father showing her that worth, that she has that worth in his eyes, and then that will automatically like transfer to her. Someone did tell me the other day, like, yeah, daughters demand more attention from their father than boys do, so be prepared for that, Yani.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, going back into like school memories and stuff, the most troubled girls I remember at school were the ones that probably didn't have a dad or had some sort of father issue or whatever it
Yeah.
was. I know that's kind of like a trope and a stereotype, but
Well, it's fact.
certainly it's something people have come across a lot in life
Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
So I can see the value in that, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, it makes women a lot more vulnerable to, I suppose, outsiders in terms of men taking advantage, right?
Yes, exactly.
Um,
You gotta just
yeah.
you just gotta give them all the attention and compliments and validation
So, tea party with Ameen. Let's go, baby.
and
It's just about how far do you go? How far does Ameen go? Does he does he have the fake tea and the fake biscuits? Does he let her do his nails? Is that too far? Too far, probably. Too
definitely.
far. Does she dress you up?
Bro, I'll do the tea party. I'll do the tea
I
party,
see
but
all
she's
sorts,
gonna
bro.
she's gonna make the cake though.
Okay, yeah. Get the apron on. Would you get the apron on?
Nah,
You get the
no.
apron on. No, you would get the apron. I know you would. I know you would. uh, yeah, I suppose. No, it's good, man. Inshallah
Yeah,
khair,
I
man.
just I just
Inshallah
think
khair.
like we underestimate kids, and like you said, which is true. Definitely for adolescents, this is an invented concept. And yes, okay, maybe we're like me and you. We're living in a position where our kids don't need to go and work when they're like 8 years old, right? But it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
they can't have some seriousness in their life and some responsibilities and some,
Yeah,
ambition
100%.
and role models and stuff. And I'm sure, like you've been seeing this, you see quite a few of the clips coming out of Gaza. You see how some of the kids over there, they're way more, put together, mature, serious. You know,
Yeah,
and that's a good
100%.
thing.
100%.
That's a good thing. Maybe the way that they
Yeah, and there's
became
going to
like
be,
that is not a good thing, but being mature is a good thing.
well, that is a silver lining of any adversity.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, what's going on in Gaza is a severe adversity. But in general, like any hardship, any sort of challenge is what gives you that growth. Like last night, bro, it was like I couldn't sleep 3, 4 in the morning,
Mm.
and I hear 4 loud bangs, boom, 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 and just I get up in bed. My wife gets out of bed. She goes straight to the kids, and I go downstairs because I thought someone was breaking in. She thought someone was breaking in,
Mm.
so she went straight to the kids, and I went straight to like the main entrances of the house. Still don't know what that noise was.
Mm.
Um, but but what was interesting, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about fear
Mm.
and like stepping up, because it wasn't until after all of that and I checked all the doors and checked all the, I was like, oh, when did that happen in me? Like because at what point does a child become a man and become able to just react to things like that? Because as a young boy, you hear a noise and you go to a parent. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like these are the things I'm trying to understand about growing up, so that I know how best to guide, my sons,
Mm.
really, because I know like being in the police really like accelerated a lot of that behavior in me, even though I was an adult when I joined and did
Yeah.
all of that. But it certainly, I don't know if you can become more than a man, but I think that's kind of what happened because of that adversity, right? Um, so I'm thinking like, where does that fit in? And I see flashes of that already in some of the boys because they've got that. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if they got any testosterone at this age, but I'm trying to say like that masculine energy coming around between each
Mm.
other. You see one of them getting bullied or pushed, whatever, in the park. The other one comes and backs him up, and they start defending each
Mm.
other. So you see flashes of that, but you want them to be able to stand on their 2 feet, and you don't want them to constantly rely on you or constantly rely on an adult to be present. Um, so yeah, it was just a thought. Like you triggered a thought in my head there. I was thinking, how does that manifest?
Mm.
Where does that? ability to activate manifest. And it was interesting seeing that my wife just didn't even speak to me, just went straight to the kids, right? Yeah, it was very, very fascinating.
With anything, I've kind of
Um,
learned this from hiring and training people. Like, people can do very, difficult things or, high level things as long as you ease them into it and you kind of let them know ahead of time
yeah,
that, okay, you're going to have to do this, or you're going to eventually do this. But don't worry, because we're going to take it step by step. Okay, watch me do it first. Okay, do this. Okay, the next step is this. So you can start someone off with, you're gonna do this like big thing. Like eventually you're gonna get to this
yeah,
level. So you're not like lowering the bar for them. You're letting them, setting the high standard, but then you're letting them relax a little bit in knowing that it's gonna happen gradually, and I'm here for you and I'm supporting you.
yeah,
So the same applies for kids, I think. Like, plant those seeds from now that, okay, this responsibility might be yours one day, or whatever it is, and then model it. So do it in front of them, and then bit by bit they can do it. It's not like, overnight, you wake up and there's a bang and you're like, Suleiman, go get it. Go deal with it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting you say about the children in Gaza, because even um, like the last quote unquote major escalation was 2014, I believe, and there's a documentary about of those boys in 2014 and a few other kids 2014, and it didn't really hit my mind until recently, unless I mentioned it previously, that those same boys are adults now,
Mm,
100%.
mm,
Those that, if they are still around, and I wouldn't be surprised if those same boys are part of some sort of resistance movement now.
mm.
um and you see them like, and these are the ones that were on the beach. Like I think it was called. I can't remember the name of the documentary. I think we might mention it. It's on Netflix,
Yeah.
but it was regarding the Israeli strike on children on the beach, and a few of the boys survived, but obviously their friends were
Mm,
killed, and that scarred them, and they suffer from all sorts of trauma, mental trauma, and also physical trauma because of that. Um, and undoubtedly, that's going to develop some sort of maturity in
mm.
someone if there is any
Yeah.
positives, but also this urge to do something about what happened.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I think
and yeah, it made me think
with
like,
with extreme adversity, it can probably be too much of a good thing, right? Like adversity, you could say
mhm,
adversity generally is a good thing. Too much of a good thing, that's when you start talking about trauma, which, I don't know if there are many positives of trauma. Maybe it does it
mhm,
does sometimes elicit interesting behaviors in people where they become extreme hard workers or something. But sometimes it puts a chip on someone's shoulder, so they're just like, they spend their whole life trying to prove people that they're worth something, and because of that, they go and start this charity or this billion-dollar company. I don't know if you can
right,
say that's that positive. I don't know, but definitely there's a sweet spot of adversity, and when you go beyond that, it can just cause trauma, and then maybe the benefits are kind of not as clearly positive. Yeah, you know what I mean?
yeah, because there's a spectrum on how people deal with
Mm-hmm.
it, how people interpret their own trauma, how
Yes.
people funnel that energy into particular
Yes.
outlets. Um, there's also, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. So there's going to be even different people are going to have different temperaments, and their abilities are going to, like, for example, you deal with something that I can't deal with. I might deal with something that you can't deal with. And also there is that potential. They say the people that bully are the ones that have been bullied
Yeah.
before. Like, you see a lot of paedophiles, for example, were also sexually abused when they were younger.
Mm.
You see a lot of people that have a bit of a twisted mentality also went through something when they were younger, and they then inflict that on others.
100%.
And that's all they know.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I'm not. But then you don't want to make excuses for those kind of people as well. Some of them.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is one of those
I was
things where
thinking,
Allah knows the truth, Allah, of what they could have done, what they did do, what they didn't do, and all of that. I read Gabor Mate's book, which is kind of
oh
like,
yeah,
a lot of it's filled with stories of him dealing with addicts in Canada, and it's full of these stories, bro, of a daughter who's an addict. Her mom's an addict, you know, raised by an addict,
Mm.
became an addict, and now she's pregnant with someone who's probably gonna be an addict, you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's a sad cycle, but he kind of describes how difficult it is to get out of that, and how a lot of these lot, you know, they refuse help, and it's
Yeah.
because they don't probably don't feel capable of going without that drug, which helps
There's
them
so
deal
many
with the issues they have, you know.
so many cycles to it though, and so many facets to it. Like I said, 5 years or whatever in the police, and I dealt with so many,
Mm,
especially like neighborhood teams where you weren't just responding to stuff, you were dealing with like long-term cases, long-term
right.
issues, same people time and time again. I remember one boy, before he was 18, he was getting all the attention from police, social services,
Mm,
everything, in a desperate attempt to try and steer him away from criminality and drugs. He was born with a hole in his throat because his mother, I can't remember how one is linked to the other, but his mother was like a heroin addict. And I think somehow there was that resulted in that. So I'm not sure, I can't remember the link or why, but I remember that that was the link. It was because and I think his mother passed away.
mm,
So it was just him. And he was from a young age associating with homeless people, street community, heroin users, using it himself, dealing drugs, stealing from shops to feed that addiction, and then but then constantly coming to police attention for that reason. But police weren't necessarily enforcing being heavy-handed with him because they're trying to use more diversionary tactics. And then it's like as soon as they turn 18, all of that just switches
mm,
off pretty much. It just feels like as soon as that happens, they're off the radar and then they're just dealt with as an adult because there's nothing else in the system to assist them with.
mm,
I mean, I'm sure there is things, but at face value, they are an adult now. So
mm,
congratulations, right? Um, and so many like that. There was another guy I remember. He was kind of like he was a young kid when I started dealing with him, maybe 15, 16. Really at the start of when I started working there. So and I could kind of get along with him. I say get along with him, but like I could connect with him because I don't know, maybe because I'm not exactly a white British cop, am I? I'm you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know, it felt like he could talk to me, whatever. So we chat a bit. Listen, don't get mixed up with these people. Blah blah blah. They're just using you, etc. Like I remember once he had like a curfew that was imposed on him by the police, and I caught him like 5 minutes past his
mm,
curfew. And he was like, oh, he was so upset. He's like, oh, you guys are going to wreck me. And I said, just be quiet, get in the car. I'm going to drive you home. So I just took him home, didn't tell
mm,
anybody. Do you know what I mean? Because you got to do these favors for the kids so that they can at least trust you and that he's not in trouble. Because what ended up happening with him was he started getting involved in drug dealing. And then they don't care about the drugs really. What they want is to put the kid in debt. So sometimes they even set the kids up to get robbed,
mm,
right? So here's the drugs. Do X, Y, Z. Bring it back to me with cash. Send them out. Send someone else to rob him. All right, you owe me
yeah.
now. Do you know what I mean? And that's it. You're a debt slave for
Mm,
eternity. His mother ended up dying, and then I didn't leave. I left that one department where I constantly saw him, so I started just responding to stuff all the time. And then I started seeing him getting involved in more serious and serious crime.
mm,
So it went from like a bit of weed to I don't know knife crime to robberies to whatever. And it was quite sad because I used to go to his. He was in like one of those supported schools or whatever, where basically for difficult or troubled kids or whatever. And I used to go visit that school a lot just to see how the kids are doing there. And they get excited when the police come and whatever. We can engage with them and see how they're doing. But then you just see a lot of them do well, and they do eventually, drift off into
mm,
upstanding members of society. But some of them just get caught up in that cycle, and he's definitely one of them. And it's quite sad to see because, like you said, uh, his mother was a user and she overdosed, and that's why she died. And now he's into this. Same with the other guy that I was speaking about. And then seeing how everyone else treats them as well. Like a lot of police officers get fed up with dealing with the same people again and again. And because of that, there is this maybe subconscious or overt with some officers, like treatment towards them. Like, well, nothing we do is going to solve you. And yeah, although at the same time, like you said, there needs to be a level of self-responsibility. And can they pull themselves out of that cycle without help? I don't know. But if you're constantly giving them handouts, constantly helping them, constantly giving them a cushion to fall on, what do you do there?
What?
The only thing I've ever thought of is like absolutely removing them from wherever that location. Obviously, it needs funding and it needs a whole program, but like you have to be able to take them out of that situation, take them out of the location, the friends, the social group, into a completely different environment. And I remember it happened once with a Muslim boy that I knew growing up. He was getting into like bad things. His dad just plucked him, took him back to Somalia, left him there for years, bro. He came back absolute student of knowledge. Like he visits every now and again. And I'm just like, yo, mashallah. Like he got in touch with me and he's proper, like he's knowledgeable, bro. Do you know what I mean? But I was like, oh, I remember when you were like almost on the bad side of the law, right? So yeah.
That reminds me of the ayah. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ.
Yeah.
What comes after that? فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِّنْهَا. Yes. Yeah. So like on the edge, bro. On the edge. And then Allah saved him. Allah saved him, man. Yeah. Now, I do think changing environment is a big thing. And you know, like I had this phase where I was reading all these addiction books and stuff, and I think we discussed it a while ago on the podcast. But it's like, yeah, changing environment is a big thing. But the thing is, it's treated like a criminal problem or a healthcare problem. I mean, it's not even treated like a healthcare problem that much, but the solutions need to be maybe slightly healthcare, but also social, right? Social. And that could include, yes, allowing them to move to a whole new part of the country and setting up a lot of things there. But I don't know, there's no will for it or budget or whatever it is. It's just, you know, I guess they just leave it to the police to deal with it. And they're like, yeah, we got bigger things to deal with. And then people suffer,
Yeah. I think a lot of people it is like a quote unquote phase. I've noticed a lot of like every year you would have, and sometimes for a few years, you'd have like this known group of people that in your area that were like causing problems. And then like I remember on my last year, I was thinking, oh, what happened to that group? Because you used to give them names just so you could track them. They'd have them like operation names. So it'd be like op this, op that. And like there was this group of like young girls, and there were boys that obviously were mixed in that, but it was mostly these girls that were like causing chaos every weekend, causing chaos every evening, like shoplifting and criminal damage and all sorts of stuff. And I remember like I hadn't heard about them in a while, and then one year I was like, wait, what happened to them? Like last summer they were just destroying the city, right? And then you come across one of them. Oh, this one's got a job. Oh, this one's, you know what I mean? Like, because the years go by. Before you know it, like 16, they're causing havoc, but like 18, 19, they're adults and they're probably like calmed down now. And I'm like, oh, so you find out actually they kind of just grew out of it. Same with some guys as well. It's like a bit of a phase. The only time it starts getting really, difficult is like when you said drugs get involved, or they have this bit of a revolving door with prison. I know a lot of guys that went to prison and they came out and that was it. Job done, never going back, put their head down, sort their life out. And then there's obviously many that just keep coming in and out, in and out. That is their life. Their life becomes that. And that's probably where the only place they found respect and success, quote unquote. And they maybe feed off of that kind of adrenaline or that kind of self-worth that gives them status. Like a friend of mine. Yeah, a friend of mine went to prison, came out, and he was like, oh, I don't believe anybody that says they can't get a job after coming out of prison. Like he pretty much self-made now. he's got a very laborious job, but it's something he does with his hands, right? And he's learned a skill and a trade, and that's his business and that's his life now. And a lot of guys can do that, and a lot of guys do that. But there's others who just go straight back to drug dealing and straight back to criminality to kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
live out whatever they think is the right way.
I think for me, it depends on the upbringing or the situation they were in. That would make me be like merciless, like sort yourself out. Just, you can do it. Anyone can do it. Everything's there for you. Versus, yeah, it's tough. Like, it comes down to the certain circumstances that could just mess you up in a deep way. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to expose yourself, but what's like the closest you felt like you've come to like that kind of, you don't come across as a bad boy, but like, have those, because growing up, those paths open themselves in front of you.
Yeah.
And there's something in us that clearly tells us not to. Like, I remember the first time I was offered drugs to take, and I just said no. Like, I was very upset with something. I can't remember what it was. I was a teenager, and a friend of mine was like, "Oh, Mo, just take some weed. It'll make you feel better." And I was like, "You want my dad to kill me? Like, you're gonna piss me off even more. Go away." And that was like my reaction to that. And the second time really was when some drug dealer guy that I knew. I mean, he was so like a friend of a friend, and I didn't realize at the time that he was like a dealer. And he like tried to get me to go across the street and give this package to someone. Oh, you got to be taking the piss, mate. And I just walked off. But that was it, There was probably a few other similar incidents like that, but every time the fear of my father, I mean, I didn't even have a desire to do it, but also combined with the fear of my father pushed me far away from that. And I was wondering if you've ever had any sort of
backbone as well. Like maybe your parents raised you to have a bit of a backbone where you can say no to things. So that's
probably, yeah.
Sure.
What about you, Ameen? That's what I want to know.
Wallah, bro,
you can tell us about your Escobar childhood.
UAE, especially back then.
No crime there,
UAE,
yeah?
There's not hardly any of that. Now, I think you would find different answer to that question. But yeah, when we were growing up there, it was good. It was very clean.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm trying to think, like, I did hear of some people getting involved in that, but it might have been like after I left. Like I went to the UK when I was like in 2000 and I want to say 11. I went there.
Yeah.
So maybe it was 2-3 years after that I heard a few people getting involved in that in UAE. And people tell me that there's way more than you think in like Dubai and stuff now. I don't know the details of that, but they're just like, yeah, like schools are full of it, this and that. And it's mostly like pills, different.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so I think my first exposure to it was definitely when 2011-ish, when I went to UK, really. I imagine this was a culture shock for me, bro. I went from UAE to pretty much straight to London, which I never hardly visited, never lived in.
Right.
I went straight to London. I was like on my own. So there was like a whole new thing, bro. Like even I remember specifically walking into a shop in the UK versus UAE. It's completely different because why? Because you can it actually is a strange feeling to be able to speak to someone in your normal accent in like pure fluent English. And then they will understand you fully and they will also reply in full fluent English. Like that was like a new thing. And I felt very aware of that. Every shop I go in, even like if I'm with some friends, I go in a shop. If I go in a shop in UAE, I can say what I want to them because our like fluency of English, other people are not going to understand generally. But in the UK, it's like you can't just say whatever you want. Like everyone's going to understand you. So I became like aware of that. But on this side of things, like it was like 2011, 12. That's when the first time I smelled weed. I didn't really know what it even smelled like. Yeah. Bro.
You're like, damn, what's that smell?
Yeah. And then I remember it might have been around 2012-ish because I lived in East London. So I remember a kid approached me trying to, sell me some stuff. And I kind of told him off because he was Muslim. So I was like, come on,
Ah,
man, sort
nice.
yourself out. Like, you're,
Mm.
I was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I asked him what his name was. I think I was wanted to like double check he's Muslim, yani. So I asked him what his name was.
He thought you were undercover, bro.
I said, what's your name?
What's your name? Where'd you
He
live?
hesitated and he said his name's Mo. I was like, your name's not
Nice.
Mo. Your name's Mohammed, bro. And I was like,
Yeah.
come on, man, you're Muslim. You can do better than this, blah, blah, blah. And then he was kind of like, yeah, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, there are a few other things I won't
For him.
mention, but that was like something I remember, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. The thing is, you can get dragged into stuff as well. Like growing up here, it's like I remember being. I remember finding myself in like almost like a gang war that I wasn't really meant to be
Yeah,
in.
definitely.
Like I remember it's like a friend of a friend. It's always a friend of a
Wallah,
friend,
I
right?
was
And
going
that's
to
the
say
problem.
that as
Like
well.
it's always like I remember one time like I was hanging out with some guy and he was like, "Oh, we need to go to my friend's house." Sweet, okay. Get to this block and he doesn't knock on the door or ring the bell. He like kicks the bottom of the door and pops it open. So I'm like, oh, that's a bit weird. Whatever. I go in there and it's like packed of guys, just packed
Yeah,
with guys. Like just this flat, just and they're all just chilling or whatever. And I'm thinking, bit of odd, bit of an odd, bit of an odd atmosphere in here. I don't know what's going on.
yeah.
And slowly, like I'm picking up pieces, and this guy keeps looking out the window. And I'm like, why does he keep looking out the window? And then I start seeing people, like certain guys holding like poles and bats and stuff. I'm like, this is a bit weird. They're not just holding that because they want something to like I've been doing, fiddle with. And then I start picking up little cues here and there from the actual flat, and I'm like, there's a lot of like female items in this flat, and there's no females here, and this guy's meant to be living on his own. Slowly, I piece together this flat doesn't belong to any of these guys.
Mm.
Nobody here lives in this flat. This flat has literally been taken over, and I finally realised what has happened is the friend of a friend of a friend or whatever has come to this flat because of some altercation with some girl who's not in a relationship with. Like his altercation with some guy and this girl's whatever. They've left the flat. He stayed in the flat, called all his friends to the flat, waiting for them to come back so they can have it have a fight. So like I found myself in this flat like with all these guys getting ready for some sort of war, and they're all looking out the window waiting for this car to show up so they can all. And then I was like, how do I get out of this one? Like I just said, I was like, oh, look at that. My mum's ringing me. Oh, that. And a lot of them were Muslim in it, so got to respect the mumsy. So I was like, my mum's calling me. I got to go. I don't know what's going on here, but see you later. So I just left.
Nice one.
I was like, screw these guys, bro. What the hell, dragging me into some nonsense?
You could have got involved somehow, yeah.
Yeah, I would have been, and that a lot of that kind of started happening 18 onwards. So that kind of those few years just before I started practicing were probably the most dangerous for me. And obviously I should have been practicing younger than that. But alhamdulillah, like 18, 19 is when I started. But like 16 to 18 was dangerous territory.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
it is like that, man. Friend of a friend. But that
yeah, man.
the friend, your friend who has those kind of friends, it's a bit questionable as well. But
absolutely.
But, it's kind of like you justify it, whatever. But that's how it happens.
Wow.
Like, yeah, that happened to me a few times in London, definitely. Like, and it's like, how do I describe this? The friend of a friend, those guys that were involved in this nonsense, they're from a very religious family, and even them, they have that background, but they just whatever excuse they would give, and so it's because of that. It's like my friend knew them well, knew them from like childhood, and so he still like sticks with them, but well, even my friend, like, alhamdulillah, I never got. I was just exposed to them, but we never really got involved in anything like like violence or this kind of stuff, which can happen where it's like you become wanted kind of thing, right? But
Yeah.
but but he did get involved. Like my friend did have incidents like running away from so and so person and like being chased with knives.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's yeah, it's true. Like you might not even be linked, but I because a lot of guys, it's a small city, and a lot of because Muslims stick together and they go to the same masjid, etc. A lot of them would also be involved. I say a lot of them, but some of them would be involved in criminality. But because they go to the same masjid, they know all the. So I remember things even as basic as like we're all hanging out where we usually hang out somewhere, like in the beach or something, and then a guy that we know slash friend runs up to us, goes, "Oh, take this bag," or "Give me your hoodie." I think it was like, "Give me your hoodie." It wasn't to me; it was someone next to me. He goes, "Give me your hoodie." They swap hoodies, and he runs off. And then literally 2 minutes later, the police start come along and ask questions. And everyone's got to be quiet and not say anything. Do you know what I mean? Because like, have you seen this guy and this guy? I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Do you know what I mean? So, but then like maybe you do and maybe you don't. And what do you do? What do you do in that situation? Um, and you just get dragged into stuff. There's so many guys I know that got arrested for not even participating or being involved in
Yeah.
anything. Um, and like even when I was an officer, like alhamdulillah, what I was really grateful for is I never really dealt with Muslims at all. I didn't actually get that was one of my biggest fears. Like, oh, if there is a Muslim guy, what do I do? The odd times that I would get, like, I remember one time, a colleague of mine pulled over a Muslim Deliveroo driver or something that I knew, recognized him from the masjid. And he was like begging me not to give him a ticket. And I was new at the time, so I didn't really have much say. And I'm like trying to figure out how to deal with this. And then I did, bro, the whole career was like just trying to figure out ways out of things. That was the whole job. But this one, it was like, I
Well,
don't
you
want
were
to give him a
new.
ticket. I don't
You were
think
new. You
personally.
probably had to prove
Yeah, but
yourself and give him a double ticket.
well, the reason they were even there was to just sign off the fact, when you start, you have to do like a checklist of things you can sign off. This was one of them. It was like, give someone a traffic ticket for this
Oh,
particular
is it
offense.
like that?
I can't remember what the offense was. And the guy that was pulled over just happened to be this guy. He was like, right, you got to give him a ticket. And I'm like, I don't want to give him a ticket. Right?
You can't join the
I'm
gang
thinking
unless
like,
you
okay,
go
how
through
do I
the
get out?
initiation process.
Yeah. Like, how do I get out of this? And he's like begging me. And like, I'm like, yeah, just wait. He's Algerian as well, actually. And I was like, I was telling him in Arabic. I was like, استنى شوية أخوي خليني نشوف. Um, anyway, how do I get out of this? I said, right, the only way I can get out of this is by
Yeah.
distraction. So as I'm like, I can't remember what the other guy's doing. He's waiting for me to do the ticket. As he's doing that, I'm hearing calls come through the radio for another emergency call. I take that emergency call. I'm just like, yep, I'll take that. And then I don't think he realizes that I've taken it. I go back to him. I'll be like, oh, we just got called up for something more important. Got to go. He's like, oh, got to go because of the grading of certain things, right? So I just took whatever was coming in to leave that guy alone. And I just said to him, oh, just go, don't do it again, whatever. That was the only way out of it. So, oh, he probably didn't even have papers for skin. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so many of those little ones. But yeah, I can't remember the point of that story. I can't remember where I was going with that. But yeah, it just shows you, man. It's like a minefield. It's absolute minefield. The people that can get you into stuff. And growing up in UAE must have been quite fascinating for that. Like my cousins grew up in the UAE, and a few of them have just come to London for university. Yeah. The oldest went to like California or something, so that must have been a culture shock. But yeah, the girls came here to England because a lot of us are in England. Family here, so it made sense for them to go to university here. I don't know why none of them went to university. Does UAE not have unis? Is that something?
It does,
I don't know.
but people don't feel it's not.
You as well. You're one of them as well. What's going on? There's like a theme here.
Firstly, it's very expensive. Secondly, the degree is
right.
going to be as weighty as if a UK one or a US one. Especially Arabs, bro. Arabs want that Western education, the Western piece of paper.
Yeah, I was really worried for them, really, because they're younger than me, and I was thinking,
Yeah,
especially the girls. I was just like, oh man, it's going to be a big culture shock.
yeah. But
Um,
in terms of like fitna,
but
like I don't know, bro. Probably similar in UAE to UK. Well,
especially now,
yeah,
no.
probably now. Like I don't know in it now, but I remember even 10 years ago, if you go to certain unis, especially the culture is very much that American uni culture kind of thing. Um, yeah, there probably are some unis where it's just a very minor uni. And so you just go to class and there's like nothing going on and you just go home and you'll like still live with your parents and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's like I don't have anything against women going to uni, for example, as long as they they go to a uni where their family live and they're just going home after uni because it's no different to college or
Mm,
school, right? Like that's what I did. I almost went to Kingston and I thought, no, I'm gonna do another year at college just to try and get the same. Because bro, even at that age, like I don't know, the thought of just leaving my family was too daunting. I didn't want to do it.
mm,
It didn't make sense to
yeah,
me. Um, and like my sister goes to uni now, and same thing. She goes to the local uni. She just finishes. A lot of the time, she does her work from home,
mm,
but finishes, comes straight home.
yeah,
It's like, well, it's no different to
yeah,
school. It's no different to how it used to be the last 10 years or whatever,
yeah.
right?
Now it's very different, I think. Like in terms of the remote stuff and the value of uni even and all
Yeah, but yeah, but even so, like, it's how much you engage with. Like, there was stuff going on when we were at college, there was stuff going on when we were at school. But if you just come home after you finish your
that. Yeah, of course,
classes, it's the same
of
thing.
course.
And it depends how much they're going to engage with that sort of
Yeah,
stuff. I think what comes with it more is this level of autonomy that the whole system kind of pushes onto university
yeah,
students. It's like, oh, you know, do what you want and when you want, and you have personal responsibility. And a lot of people see that as a free pass to just
yeah.
live like an alternate
Well, I think
lifestyle.
what happens as well is when you go to uni outside of your city, you're you're probably not going with anyone from your college or school or whatever, and so you can reinvent
Right.
yourself into whoever you like. You can.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Wow.
holding you back from switching up completely. Your family don't have to know. Your friends, no, your friends are not with you. You know, you're going to make fresh, new friends over there, and sometimes those new
Yeah.
friends will actually define that person you become. Your university character. You know, and so if you end up with the wrong friends in the freshers week, right, then that can
Oh yeah.
shape a lot. So I think that's the key actually, and you've said that, which is if you go to a local place, bro, your family are around, your friends are around, your old friends are still around. There's some sort of grounding you have. If you go to a new place, fresh start, bro. Do whatever you want.
That's it, man. Yeah. Batman, Bruce Wayne, bro. Alter ego over there.
It,
Come back and we won't even get
it,
recognized.
can, it can happen. Well, it can happen. I did that actually. I was like an hour or two from my family, like where my parents were living. But this was in UAE, right? But it
Right.
still had full freedom, more freedom than I ever had. Complete, pretty much freedom. My dad even got me a car
You're a good
eventually,
boy.
and
That's it. You're a good boy, I mean.
well, I just said that I had freedom. That's
Oh.
all. I didn't say much more than that.
الحرية. Everybody wants
Yeah,
الحرية. It's what all North Africans want.
yeah.
الحرية والخبز.
فهي زي الحرية والديمقراطية. لا.
Man.
But
Well,
yeah, yeah, UAE is interesting. I mean, honestly, and this shows like, alhamdulillah, how sheltered, I would say sheltered, but in a good way. Some other people say sheltered meaning a bad thing, right? But I was sheltered in a good way with three levels of protection. Number one, it was like the 90s, early 2000s, right? When I was like growing up and stuff in school in UAE. So it was the time. Secondly, it was the place, UAE. But thirdly, oh damn, the electricity just went. Thirdly, why is the internet still working then?
emergency
Yeah,
power.
probably. I think they have that. Thirdly, I was not in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, and so that's a big factor because even going to Dubai is a bit of a culture shock, yani back then. So
Yeah.
That was a lot of protection. So when I went to Abu Dhabi, I was exposed to like whole new types of people that I never came across. I mean, even just nationalities, even like imagine in however how long was I? I was in school like year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, 11 years. 11 years in school, I had no Emirati friends. But in university,
Oh,
I actually made some Emirati friends. So that's like a whole new culture that I was exposed to more, right? Same with
yeah.
just way more Arabs as well, like Egyptians, or there was quite a few North Africans because of the type of uni. West Africans, I didn't know none of these growing up as a child. So it was a new thing over
Yeah.
there. And then Abu Dhabi is just like a bigger city, more going on, more like tourists and different stuff going on, Yani. So yeah, there was definitely, it was a culture shock. It was a bit gradual. It was a bit gradual. It wasn't that much of a shock, but it was just a lot. It was bad. Like there was there was more bad stuff than I thought there was before going there, basically. So yeah.
Right.
And then when
Right.
I
Makes
eventually,
sense.
like it must have been 2015, 16ish, I got a job in Dubai. When I went Dubai, it was like even more. You know, imagine. Let me turn the light on one
Right.
second. Light's not working, but I got my thingy light. Oh, there you go.
It's all right. You're still very
Yeah, yeah.
visible.
So, forgot what I was saying, man. Yes, I got an office job, 2016ish, in Dubai. Never lived in Dubai before. Went Dubai, and the office is like probably, I want to say, 75% Muslims who are working there. You know, either Arabs or South Asian. Yeah, like a mix of those. And it's all like English speaking environment. But yeah, like I'm like the only practicing Muslim, you know, and it's just a bit.
Yeah.
But what I did was because a lot of the Arabs were like fully westernized. Some of them like girlfriends, some of them drink and this kind of stuff. Allah yaghfir lahum. But then I would stick to certain groups who are like more freshy types. That's what I would do. Like, and it wasn't that long because I didn't have the job for very long.
You strike me. You strike me as a freshie, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
fine.
So
Birds of a feather.
yeah, so I was like, I used to hang out with this Pakistani guy, freshie like Pakistani guy, Filipino guy, like just like the ones who are not as much. I don't know how to define them, right? What they have in common, but they're just more down to earth, less materialistic, less into this like hedonism, like obsessed with, yeah, go out for the weekend, this and that. So I used to stick to these guys. I mean,
Wow.
I used to stick to myself a lot. That's just how I am. But also stick with these guys. Then there were like some Westerners and some Arabs,
Yeah.
like the Arabs who were like begging to be Western. I mean, they are very influenced by this global culture. And then there's the Westerners themselves. So I kind of kept away from them mostly. They got the message very early on.
Right.
Yeah.
I love those ones.
But
Yeah. You got to rip it off like a
that's
band-aid.
why,
Let them know
yeah.
their status.
But I do wonder, yeah, if I didn't get fired after 6 weeks, like how long would I really have lasted there? With how direct I am, with how much I'm just like go into work, put the earphones on, put white noise, let me do my work. No chit chat, no sucking up to the manager. Like how really long was I gonna last? Even if I wasn't as naive as I was, it just I don't know, it's just not me. Like I don't know. I could be a little bit indirect, but I can't. Don't know.
Look, you're a rude guy sometimes, bro. You just sit.
Well,
We've never had a complaint about anything I've said on the podcast, more or less. But
I was
you
thinking
just
about that
you
while
know
we
how
were
to get in
recording
under
today.
people's skin.
Like we haven't had controversy for a while. I haven't upset people for a while, actually.
You said something last week that I thought was going to get
What is it?
get
Let's say it again,
some
bro.
people going. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but I brought up the Palestine
Yeah.
issue, like the
Yeah.
news, and then you said, oh, we don't want to bore the people,
Yeah.
bro. And I was just like, oh, that I know what you're trying to say, but
Mm.
that's not what you
Yeah,
say.
that's a good example.
Yeah, and yeah, I know what you mean, and I'm sure the avid listeners will know what you
Yeah,
mean. But the odd person
yeah,
who's
yeah,
quite,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
quite
yeah.
reactive will take that and run with it. At the moment, you've got. I mean, you're not. Yeah, are you using Twitter a lot?
No, hardly.
Not really, are you? No, in that case, I'm not going to bother with Twitter drama. Um, so yeah,
Mm.
I think. But after 208 episodes, I've uh, I've learned to let it slide. I mean, because I know you, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but also you should bring it up
I'm
so we can
joking. It's not that
discuss
big of
it.
a problem. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember how I
Yeah,
reacted. I think I just said to you, "No, it's not boring," and
yeah,
then I
yeah, yeah,
carried
yeah.
on.
But sometimes
I'm
I
pretty
say
sure that's
things,
what I did.
and I see you cringe of it, and I'm like, yes, I know he thought that was like controversial to say.
I'm like, ooh, let's see what
Yeah, yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Um, but that's, I think, more telling of our different life experience.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
you, I've had to be very careful with my words all the time,
yeah,
and so not to be misconstrued by someone who's going to call me an extremist or
yeah,
whatever,
true.
or even get them riled up when I'm trying to communicate with them. However, you haven't had that
I've been a
issue. I don't think you can
free
be brought along with
spirit, not shackled so
free
far.
spirit. Let the chips fall where they
Yeah,
may.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know,
Although
yeah.
I was going to say, you must have adapted some of that by now, being married for as long as you have been.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we both have
That's
to.
what I was gonna
Yeah.
say is that I'm direct, but I've been able to be indirect enough to stay married for like 5 years.
Yeah. Honey, does this dress look good on me? Uh,
Although, to be honest, bro, I'll put most of it down to my wife just being tolerant.
yeah.
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
Yeah, man.
So, okay, last question.
Alhamdulillah.
You're saying that you know had to develop this way of avoiding getting into trouble, etc. Are you just talking about like police, or are you talking about like just life in the UK?
Both, I think.
Mm,
Yeah, both. Absolutely.
mm,
I think there's a certain level of navigating already when you're growing up in a non-Muslim country, especially when you start practicing and stuff. There's always different things to navigate. Um, yeah, my kids started like drugs started becoming common around me at maybe 16. Um, there was like at school there were some very young people who started using drugs and they were shunned by everyone at school. Okay, so they were like, "Oh, that's the naughty kid. I heard he does
mm,
drugs." And that was like the narrative from everyone at
mm,
school. And they tend to be the ones that were getting in trouble all the time. Although it sounds like a lot more kids are getting involved in a lot more things now than there used
mm.
to be. Before it used to be like
Yeah,
that
you could
kid,
point them
maybe
out.
those two. Yeah. And now it seems to be, I think because the culture became a lot more revolved around it. Many cultures started revolving around that kind of
Mm.
stuff. So whether it's the hip hop culture or the grime scene, or even I don't know,
Emos, punk,
popular
goth.
kids and yeah, whatever, yeah, everything, everyone had theirs. Um, and then what was I going to say? Slowly but surely, like there was a kid, like one of my closest friends at school. He used to swear like, "Oh, my older brother smokes. I'm never going to smoke. I got asthma. I can't do it anyway. Oh, it's disgusting." Blah blah blah. And they all used to say stuff like that. And then like as soon as we hit 16, he started smoking. This guy started smoking. Everyone started smoking, and then they started going and like we used to go out to town every weekend and have like fun, bros. Go cinema or go bowling or do cool things, like
Yeah,
fun things. Right, get milkshakes. That
yeah,
was fun. I
yeah,
enjoyed that. And then it slowly started like, oh, we can't go to cinema until we go and buy weed first. We can't do this until we go and buy weed first. And then it just started taking
Everyone
over their
knows, bro.
lives, bro.
Buying
Like,
weed becomes a whole mission in and of itself.
how do you know that? You didn't tell me that was happening. You didn't. You're not letting on as much
I'm
as you know.
not. I'm not. I admit
You're like everybody knows buying weed is so tough. Right. Well, like I said, yeah, I stopped. Basically, eventually, just disappeared one day. Stopped hanging out with them. because it just became like non-stop. And then when I like visited one of their houses, I realized their parents give them like weed pocket money and weed as pocket money, and I was like, well, that is your problem. There's your problem. So yeah, there's that aspect when it comes to using drugs, and then it started evolving into like, oh, I'm suddenly like surrounded by dealers, and that kind of started more when I became a bit more Arabized, if that's the way to call it, because a lot of the Arabs in the city were of that kind of persuasion, like roadmen and whatever. Not necessarily all engaging in that behavior, but there is a few in those circles that definitely were, right? So that had an influence on the rest of the groups. And yeah, that was. But I think by then I've already kind of solidified that I'm a good boy. Do you know what I mean? I think like it all comes down to me, like, and this is something I always have in my own marriage and my family. I hold my success, quote unquote, like avoiding most of that stuff growing up, to the unity of my mum and dad. They were together through thick and thin, right? And I had them together like every day here and throughout my life. It wasn't until I was older that my dad had to go to Tunisia and pretty much live there and came and visit. But by that point, I'd already kind of become a man. I was at college, I think. Yeah. So because of that, like when I got married, like I don't know how other people. I don't know. Allahu alam. I'm sure maybe I'm over exaggerating my understanding of it, but when I got married, it's like that's it. There is no divorce. It doesn't exist. It's not in my vocabulary. Like 7, 8 years I've been married, I've never even thought of it, and it hasn't like even in the most obviously couples argue. So even let's think of the worst argument I've ever thought of. It's never even crossed my mind. It hasn't even crossed my mind as like how do I deal with this? Like some men might have because I've spoken to many men, right? And they might, ask for advice in a marriage or whatever. And the problem they're dealing with isn't even that big on my Richter scale. Yeah. Okay. But it's like they've got option A, B, and C, and like C is divorce. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What? Yeah. Like, is that your threshold? What is going on here? Why is that even an option? Because my parents just didn't have that. That wasn't in their vocabulary. That wasn't like my mum and dad, alhamdulillah, may Allah bless them. Yeah, I've seen them go through tough times and good times, and some of the most difficult times that still wasn't even in the vocabulary. It still wasn't there. Like my mum had this thing where I don't want to expose her, but she had this thing where like she would never go and complain to her parents about anything because she had that female, wanted to keep.
Yeah, that's a very.
I don't know if everybody's got that today,
trait, bro, but it might be rare. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's very.
But because of that, honestly, because yeah, alhamdulillah, and obviously, my father died, and my mum, misses him terribly, and there was no doubt that there was a lot of love in that marriage, and there's no resentment or anything whatsoever. It's just all love, and that love is, if anything, magnified more since his passing because she misses him so much. So yeah, I hold that upbringing to that, and that's what I want to emulate. And going back to what we started this topic with, trying to raise kids, I think like the quickest, easiest win is just both parents being on the same page in the same place. Like, that's it. Like that is the biggest solidifier, because I don't do what I've seen some parents do, or I might have experienced, where it's like my wife says something, but I'll say something different. Like behind my son would always ask me, "Oh, can I do?" Like he started doing this now, where his mum has told him no, and he'll come to me and be like, "Oh, Dad, can I do this?" And like I'm about to say yes, but I'm like, "What did your mum say?" And he's like, he starts smirking to himself. I'm like, no, no. Right? Because of that, I want us to be a unified block, and I'll tell them, "Oh yeah, I'm on your mummy's team. Like, oh, your mummy's in charge of that. You need to ask her first." And sometimes she'll say, "Go and ask your dad," and then I'll realize, "Oh, okay, fine." But I always have that as like a check and a balance. Yeah, 100%. Because I trust my wife to do the right thing, and sometimes I'll offset that responsibility on her just to double check he hasn't already asked her first, or there hasn't already been this conversation before. And that's going to happen more and more the older they get. They're going to be a lot more cunning. Like now, I know when my son's lying or who's telling a bit of a fib, or he said he's going to do something and he didn't do it, or, did you brush your teeth? Yeah. No, you didn't. Go back and brush your teeth. But when he's older, I don't know. Let's hope it can iron that kind of behavior out.
Inshallah, yeah. It's that age. It's testing the boundaries.
Yeah. Absolutely. But these are the things, man. And I'm sure after 200 and whatever episodes, you strike me with the same mentality. You strike me with the same mentality when it comes to that. Be wrong there. Allahu alam. Could be. That's it.
All right. Great episode, bro. Didn't even cover everything, mashallah.
Glafic.
Nice.
I told you, bro. Mind heist. Mind heist, baby.
Don't test. Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Drop the hammer. Drop the hammer.